Good morning. I'm Kirsten Hunter, the Director of Lifespan Ministries here at South Church. I am honored to welcome you to our annual Bridging Worship today. Here with me is Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown, a Worship Associate Brian Bliss, and Jennifer Del Deo, our Religious Education Coordinator.
I'm Reverend Susan, and today's service is a really special tradition for our congregation. And finding a virtual way to include our whole community in a worship that is so rooted in ritual has not been an easy task. But once again, so many members of our wonderful South Church family have pulled it together to do just that. Welcome to this ceremony.
Whether you're new to South Church or join us as often as possible, we're so glad you're here. We also want to extend special thanks to Senior Youth Group Leader Kat Lyons and to the musicians who've helped make today's worship extra special. That includes Susan Adams, Riley Scease, Iris Katzman, and Summer Young. And I'd be remiss if we didn't also send ongoing thanks to Pip Clues, who's been helping us with the video production of these virtual services since the end of March, and definitely put in extra time this week.
Today, as we celebrate the end of another church year, we mark the transitions that so many of us have navigated during this circle around the sun. Some of our youngest children are preparing for preschool in the fall. Some are anticipating a new school year in whatever form that takes. Our 8th grade coming of age class will be making the transition to our senior youth group. And our high school seniors are moving out of our religious education program and stepping into the welcoming arms of our adult congregation.
So many of us can think back to our own experience of graduation and instantly remember the excitement and anxiety of that transition. It is reawakened throughout our adulthood as such transitions continue. Today we will think about that ongoing truth. We will celebrate the universal reality of change and of thresholds. Especially this year, it's worth thinking about these moments, these in-between spaces, when we recognize that something has ended, but we don't yet know what will come next. What a gift to have each other as we share this heart work.
Social Justice Associates are hosting a webinar panel and everyone's invited. Dispelling Myths, Real Stories of Immigration and Detention will be held from 7 to 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 10th. You can learn more information by coming to social hour after church today and popping into the Social Justice Associates breakout room. Don't forget to fill out a Penn Hollow Society form if you have or plan to make a legacy gift to South Church. The form and information about the Penn Hollow Society and our endowment can be found on the South Church website under the Giving heading. And finally, our weekly challenge. Next week, we would like to see a picture of one way that you're staying connected with others in a socially distant world. Please send your photos to Jen Del Deo at Jen Del Deo at southchurch-uu.org by Thursday morning.
Day one start, that you learned from the morning. Now we rise, we are everywhere. Now we rise from the ground. See, she flies. She is everywhere. See, she flies all around. So look, see the sights, the endless summer nights, and go play the game that you learned from the morning.
As relative newcomers to South Church, bridging is new to my family. Our kids are 8 and 4, so we haven't yet experienced some of life's bigger transitions. But in a way, we're all in a transition period right now, an in-between phase, having to pause for who knows how long on a threshold dividing what we thought we knew from what we have no way of knowing. For all of the challenges of our time, being on this threshold is one way to really be in the moment, whatever it may bring. And while we can never really be ahead in an unknown future or behind in a past that will never be again, perhaps there's never been a clearer opportunity to be right here, right now. And even though we can't be with each other in the sanctuary this year, thankfully, we still have a way to celebrate this moment together. Our chalice will be lit today by the parents of 3 South Church youth graduating high school this month: the Hanley Miller family, the Vernon Dixon family, and the Montville family. They're lighting the chalice from each of their homes as our South Church chalice is lit in the sanctuary. And as they do so, here is Sacred Unknowing by Amy Carroll Webb. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. Feel free to join in as we recite the mission statement displayed on your screen. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community.
Our religious education classes for grades kindergarten through 7th grade have been meeting virtually for short sessions throughout the past many weeks. While it's not ideal, we've had some really sweet time together. Our focus is on what we believe children need most right now: connection, play, love, and gentle exploration. We'll continue this format through the summer, and we invite all children to join us at any time that feels right. Parents are welcome too. All of the details are on our website. Our Time for All Ages today is the product of our Wednesday afternoon class. Here's a group of talented South Church kids presenting a story that we had fun playing with this month. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and I can't wait to see you, and we're sending you lots of love.
This story is called Old Joe and the Carpenter, an Appalachian tale of building bridges, written by Pleasant L. DeSpain. Old Joe lived way out in the countryside, and he had one good neighbor. They'd been friends all their lives, and now that their spouses were buried and their children raised, all they had left were their farms and each other. But for the first time, they'd had an argument. It was over a stray calf that neither one really needed. It seemed as though the calf was found on Joe's neighbor's land, and so he claimed it as his own. But old Joe said,
"No, that calf has the same markings as my favorite cow, so I recognize it as being mine."
Well, they were both a bit stubborn, so they just stopped talking to each other. It seemed that a dark cloud had settled over old Joe until there came a knock on his door 1 week later. He wasn't expecting anybody that morning, and as he opened the door, he saw a young woman who had a box of tools on her shoulder. She had a kind voice and dark, deep eyes, and she said,
"I'm a carpenter and I'm looking for a bit of work. Maybe you could have some small jobs that I can help with?"
Old Joe brought her into the kitchen and sat her down and gave her some stew that he had on the back of the stove. There was also home-cooked fresh bread, fresh churned butter, and homemade jam. While they were eating and talking, Joe decided that he liked this young carpenter, and he said,
"I do have a job for you. Look right there through my kitchen window. See that farm there? That's my neighbor's place. And you see that creek running down between our property lines? That creek wasn't there last week. My neighbor did that to spite me. He took his plow up there and dug a big furrow from the upper pond and flooded it. Well, I want you to do better. Since he divided us that way, you go out there and build me a fence, a big tall fence, so I won't even have to look at his place anymore."
"Well, if you have the lumber and the nails, I got my tools and I'll be able to build something that you'll like."
Joe had to go to town to get some supplies, so he hitched up the wagon and showed the carpenter where everything was in the barn. The carpenter carried everything she needed down to the creek and started to work. The carpenter's work went smooth and fast. She did her measuring and her sawing and her nailing. It was about sunset when old Joe returned, and the carpenter had finished her work. When old Joe pulled up in that wagon, his eyes opened wide and his mouth fell open. There wasn't a fence there at all. It was a bridge going from one side of the creek to the other, and it had handrails and all, a fine piece of work. And his neighbor was just starting to cross the bridge with his hand stuck out, and he was saying,
"No, no, I can't afford to do this French. I never to do that. I'm so glad you're going to be friends again."
and Joe, he put his arms around his neighbor and said,
"Oh, that calf is yours. I knew it all the time. I just wanted to be your friend too."
Thank you.
About that time, the carpenter started putting her tools in the box and then hoisted it onto her shoulder and started to walk away. And Joe said,
"Well, come on back, young carpenter. I want you to stay on. I got lots of projects for you."
"I'd like to stay on, Joe, but you see, I can't. I got more bridges to build."
So she walked on, and there ends my tale.
It's now time for the offering, an opportunity to support the programs of our church and to live our shared values in the larger community. This is the last day of our month-long collection shared with NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, New Hampshire, which is a grassroots organization working to improve the quality of life for all by providing support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness and suicide. You can contribute by clicking on the donate link at the top of our website, southchurch-uu.org. Please give as you are able. Your contribution would be gratefully received.
First Catsman will now play a song for us as we watch our annual bridging procession. If you've ever been to a bridging worship before, you may remember that in the past, we've invited all the children and youth from our congregation to join in a procession down the aisles of the sanctuary and through a threshold at the steps of the chancel. This year, we invited children, youth, and adults to share a photo to symbolize the transitions they're navigating, as they truly are an ongoing part of life. We hold each of you within the love of our shared community.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. And I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone over the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. I think I can make it now, the pain is gone. And all of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here's the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, it's nothing but blue skies. Look all around, it's nothing but blue skies. Well, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. And I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day.
It is so good to see so many people from our community in those photos. And to those of you who weren't able to send in pictures, we are thinking about all of you as well when we say how proud we are of each and every one of you. This has been a really strange spring. For our kids who attend schools, you probably haven't been in those buildings since the middle of March. I'm sure you're missing friends and teachers and getting to celebrate the end of the year together. For those of you who aren't going to school, your life has changed too, with parks and museums closed, not getting to see all the people that you love. We are missing those things as a church community too. I know some of you have really struggled with online learning. No matter how hard or easy you've found that to be, I know these past few months have asked a lot of every one of you. Parents and caretakers, I see you out there. Take a big breath. Imagine that we are giving you a really big high five. You are all awesome.
Our 8th grade youth have been finishing their coming of age program in the midst of all this change as well. During worship on June 14th, our congregation will have the pleasure of getting to hear the faith statements they've been writing. But today, our senior youth group has a special message for this group of 8th graders.
Hi, my name is Kat Lyons, and I have the honor of being the Senior Youth Group Coordinator here at South Church. For our final piece of this bridging ceremony, we want to acknowledge all high school seniors who are stepping through this threshold right now. In particular, we would like to honor South Church youth Kate Hanley Miller, Kate Dixon, and Ari Montville.
As a part of marking their graduation and shift from youth to adulthood, their parents shared some wishes with me that I will offer now. Our wish for you is that you are guided by your ability to tune out the noise and tune into the wisdom that is already within you. May you know and feel your own power, hear and respect your own voice. May you find moments to shine as your full self, and may you find the quiet of your soul when you need it. Continue, dear ones, to use your creativity to inspire and lead others. Our wish for you is laughter and love, continued growth, health. Soak up the energy of this moment when so many people are celebrating who you are, cheering for who you will become. May your lives be filled with lasting friendships that exude this kind of warmth and love. Our wish for you is to know and experience fun and joy abundantly. May you live the best days of your life again and again, in New York City adventures, in deep conversations, finding work you love, finding time to rest. May all the love you invest in others multiply and come back to you. Your parents are wise to remind you that home is inside you, and that they and we are here for you no matter where your travels take you. In these past few months, we've all been reminded of how interconnected and interdependent we are. May that reminder stay with you as you make choices about your future. May you hold in your hearts and minds the love and teachings of your South Church home, and may that faith sustain you. Remember that you are a part of something larger than yourself, and demonstrate that understanding by giving what you can to others in this world. Beauty, joy, and potential for growth is always present even during the hardest times in life. Our wish for you is that you remember there is still beauty, joy, and growth when those hard days come, because they always do, and they always pass by too. Take risks, make mistakes, love even when you know it might mean heartbreak. We are cheering you on. Have no regrets. That is our wish for you.
When we dedicate a child here at South Church, we use a rose with the thorns removed, which we dip into holy water and touch the child as we offer a blessing.
When we bridge our youth into adulthood, we again offer them a rose, but this time with the thorns left on, trusting that now you are ready to navigate life, thorns and all. I welcome now young adults from our community to offer you this blessing.
Bless your eyes that you may see clearly.
We bless your lips that you may speak the truth in love.
We bless your ears that you may listen deeply.
We bless your heart that you may follow the path of love.
We bless your hands that you may find meaning and purpose-filled work.
And we bless your feet that you may travel far and wide, but always find your way home.
Here is your rose.
Welcome to young adulthood.
And see you at the alumni reunion.
I would invite you into some time of prayer and reflection. Today is a service that marks the bridging, the transition from youth to being fully immersed in the community. And as we listen to our youth, as we walk with them through this time of transition, we are reminded of our own times of transition. I myself am transitioning to be your new interim minister, coming out of retirement, loving to be with you and yearning to be with you in more than this virtual world. Yet that too is a bridging of what is and what cannot be. Bridging, transitioning, changing, so much calls to mind. I'm reminded of times when I thought I knew answers, to going to times when I had no idea what would happen. I had times when I knew that I was held in love and care, and times when I was part of broken relationships, knowing that maybe those relationships would come to end and wondering if new ones would start, and they did, and I'm ever so grateful for them. I think of the words that our youth need to take with them. Know that you are cared for always. Know that you are part of a community that loves you, has the best intentions for you to bloom and blossom into that full potential. And isn't that the way that it is supposed to be in the world? That we are all supposed to bloom and blossom and utilize and be able to express our full potential, that potential of love and compassion and caring, interconnectedness, interrelatedness, knowing that some things change, but ultimately what remains the same is the bridge of our being that keeps us connected. And speaking of connected, this morning I would invite you to put your prayer needs in the chat line during a moment of silence and while you listen to music. And know that every prayer need that you put there is held in love and care by every person who reads it, by your pastoral associates, by me, and by the staff. I want to particularly mention this morning two things. One, the celebration of a birthday of a 8-year-old, Phoebe. Happy birthday, Phoebe. And the other is to make an amendment or an addition to a prayer that we talked about last week, which is Louise Cameron now has 2 grandbabies. One, a little daughter born to her daughter, and then a little boy that was born to her son. Grandbabies galore. We are so happy for you, Louise. Being a grandmother, there's nothing like it. So express your thoughts. Know that you're held in care. Know that we are here for you no matter what experiences you are having. And as you are bridging through life, because that's what we do, know that you can reach out and be held in care. May it be so.
When I was getting ready to graduate from high school, I remember a conversation that was repeated with almost every elder in my life, where they would comment about how excited they were for me, would share some advice, and ask me about my next steps. The conversation was so frequent that I started using the same string of sentences, repeated again and again as I crossed paths with my neighbors, family, friends, relatives. It kind of developed into a short script. I appreciated receiving the attention of those adults in my life as they acknowledged the rite of passage that was unfolding. But I also remember that time feeling a little uncomfortable and disingenuous. Sweet but awkward interactions with people who knew and loved me. Thinking about it now, I realized something I didn't quite grasp back then. Certainly, my elders were genuinely happy for me, and they were asking about my plans because they cared. But I'm now aware that for some of them at least, a part of their fascination with me was rooted in their own sentiment and reflections about what they themselves had learned to be true in their own coming-of-age experiences. I know this because I feel that sentimental longing to share in myself now when I'm in the presence of emerging young adults. Those clean slate days of early adulthood are appealing for grown-ups who have lived a bit longer. Crossing paths with a young person just emerging into the wider world seems to light up all the lessons we've learned, all the decisions we made ourselves, the good and the bad. If we catch ourselves, we might hold back from sharing too many of those lessons we've collected, but we certainly want to hear what the young people are thinking and planning. And in our own minds, at least for some of us, we wander down all kinds of paths, memories and adventures, and we pour that sweet sentiment into our oversized smiles and oversized encouragement, leaving our young ones sometimes feeling loved, but also maybe a little unseen. This year feels different. As we live in the uncertainty of the pandemic, so many of the experiences older folks remember about those first few months and years of adulthood, they just don't translate to what young adults are living into right now. None of us know what to expect in the year ahead of us or in the years that come after that. Our illusion that we can see into their future by thinking about how it was in the past has been shown for what it is, an illusion. Even before the pandemic, most of us had come to a realization that the climate crisis was going to make the future very different than what we have known until now. The inequity of this world, the division between those who have more than they need and those with not nearly enough, that wasn't sustainable. We were, I think, starting to pull our heads out of the clouds a little. But if that wasn't already true, it certainly is now. We are more aware this year that asking about plans on the horizon might be a hard subject. At least it's tenuous. That has always been true. But this current moment has forced us to tune into that. We are all seeing the question marks in front of us, blazing bright. And this week, as once again the ugly, pervasive truth about racism in our country flares up, the screams for us to stop maintaining a system that is intentionally sacrificing brown and black bodies are impossible to ignore. So that even though this is a worship meant to celebrate, it feels like it would be wrong to do so in a way that ignores what's happening right now and what we don't know about tomorrow. There is a gift in being honest about our precarious present and our uncertain future. This year, we are learning that we can joyfully celebrate the accomplishments of our graduates, celebrate the turning of another year, without leaning on sentiment and pretending to know what the future will hold. We are genuinely talking with one another about what it feels like not to know what's on the next page. This is a conversation with wildly different potential than the one where we picture the future of a young person before they live into it. When is the last time that you can think of that every person you know at nearly the same time was forced to let go of how we do things to the extent that we have all been pushed to that place in the last few months? I would argue that it has never happened before. Not to this extent, certainly not in this moment of global interconnectedness. On the days when I am not devastated by what is happening, I am hopeful that this disruption might bring about changes which are desperately needed in the world. And rarely does change happen without discomfort. Unitarian Universalism is ready-made for the work of building a new way. Let's take advantage of its blueprint right now. We are a massive network of people who share a commitment to recognize the inherent worth of all people. We affirm the need for justice, equity, and compassion. We welcome diverse spiritual practices and encourage each other to continue to deepen those practices throughout our lives. We name the importance of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We acknowledge the right of conscience in the democratic process. We strive for a world community. And we pledge to respect that interdependent web of all existence, of which each of us are a part. Those principles are not a doctrine. They are a call to action offered to each of us every day. There are not many things that I feel sure about in this world, but I feel very sure about the value of practicing our UU principles, and that is something that cannot be done alone. Which brings me back to our bright young people bridging into adulthood, and those of us who are a bit more wizened and crusty. We need to work on the bridges between us. We need one another to harness the potential of this moment, young and old. We cannot do it by hunkering down and narrowing our points of connection. We need to fight the urge to hole up and weather the storm. Instead, let's find ways to share our questions, our energy, our wisdom, and our insights. Let's tell each other about our fears. Let's be creative and make mistakes and share the grief that each of us bring to this moment so that we can harness the storm and harvest a new future in its wake. One that is sustainable and that serves all of humanity, not just some at the expense of others. What young people need from those of us who have lived a bit longer is not a roadmap of how to get where we have gotten. They need us to be here to listen, to show them how to practice living our faith, to catch them if they make mistakes, but also be willing to make mistakes ourselves. They need us to model what it looks like to have humility. They need to see us grieve at injustice out there while we also grapple with the ways it lives within our own hearts. They need us to accept some discomfort because change will not happen unless we are willing to make some sacrifices in each of our own lives. And we need something from our young people too. We need you to keep trying to explain how the world is different for you. We need you to recognize that there is value in us understanding one another better. and to work through the clunky, awkward conversations that will bring us to that deeper understanding. Be patient with our tendency towards sentiment and our sometimes overconfident opinions. Young ones, remember that you have fresh eyes and a new kind of fluency with this world that has changed in such significant ways. But you also need to practice being in community with us. If you move so fast into the future that you leave us behind, we will all fail to find that new way. Today, we are at a threshold, unlike any that has come before, and we are facing this future together. Now, I would like to invite you into a time of meditation. In this moment, when every one of us find ourselves living in the space between how life was before and how it will be when we emerge from these days into something new. A threshold that will be different for each of us, but that we are also all experiencing at once. Close your eyes. Try to imagine yourself peaceful and at ease. Picture a beautiful bridge stretching out in front of you. You are standing before it, but you are not worried. You're curious. On this side is everything that has been, all that you know, all that is familiar. Some of it so precious to you, some of it quite heavy and hard, and it's all here, all around you. And as you step out onto that bridge before you, imagine that everything you know stays behind. It doesn't wash away or disappear, but it hangs back. On the bridge, you walk with light steps, unencumbered, untethered. It feels different than a path that you might wander on a regular day. You are free from what has been. You have let go of who you had been. Picture as you reach the middle of the bridge that your mind and heart are clear. Pause here and listen. Ahead of you now, you can see the other side. And to your right and to your left, you realize that all of the world is stepping forward with you. What will you bring along? What is worth carrying? What should you take this opportunity to leave behind? Thank you for being here with me this morning.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
Once written, our story isn't how we pictured it. And now, reaching the branching of paths, as we knew one day we would, we find our glance trailing back along the pages of the story we have written. At times, we wonder if, while writing it, we took our story for granted, just a bit. As illustrations of laughter and learning spread across the page, we realized this was our community too. We collected our work together, our pieces of justice, in our pockets, like memories of seashells. Our connections surprised us. It's always nice to find friends in unexpected places. The story kept growing. The path, too, from a seed to a sprout to the branching vine of our lives. And now we've reached the crossroads. It isn't how we pictured it, but it's so beautiful. Ahead are the unwritten stories, shining with promise. There will be more learning and growing. There will be choices and life. There will be time to make decisions. There will be freedom to explore. And when we write those stories, we can look back on our twisty, branching vine and know that we built so much of this together.
Three little birds sat on my window, and they told me I don't need to worry. Summer came like cinnamon, so sweet. Little girls still touch on the concrete. Maybe sometimes we've got it wrong, but it's alright. The more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. Oh, don't you hesitate, girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Blue as the sky, sunburned and lonely, sipping tea in the bar by the roadside. Don't you let those other boys fool you. Gotta love that afro hairdo. Maybe sometimes we feel afraid, but it's alright. The more you stay the same, the more they seem to change. Oh, don't you think it's strange? Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. 'Twas more than I could take. Pity for pity's sake. Some nights kept me awake. I thought that I was stronger. When you gonna realize that you don't even have to try any longer? Do what you wanna. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. Oh, you're gonna find yourself somewhere.